All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the last webinar of the Build Your Brand series for 2023. I feel like time has flown by. If you missed any of our webinars, they're all available on the Cornerstone Resource Center, so you can go there and you can check that out and take a look at what we got to offer about building your brand and managing your marketing. And of course, as per usual, if you have any recommendations for webinars that you'd like to see in 2024, please let me know. My information is going to be on the screen here in just a second. But first, today we're going to be talking about some time management and staying productive tips for when your to-do list is far too long, because I believe we're all about to be there in the next couple of months here. First, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat box and we will get to them at the end of the presentation. So there's a question box or a chat box on your GoToWebinar dashboard. Just leave those questions in there and we will get through them one by one. My information is here on the screen if you'd like to get in contact with me, and don't forget to follow us on social media. We post industry and Cornerstone updates and information. So visit Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube to give us a follow. Unfortunately, we're not on TikTok and we're not on Threads, so maybe someday, but not right now. All right, and with that, let's talk about time management. All right, so who else looks like this during the busy season? Especially during AEP and OEP, task management can be particularly difficult, as is just keeping up with life in general. You have to make countless calls, run dozens of quotes, and satisfy each client's needs, all while giving the same level of care and attention to each client. That's no easy task, but you can make it a little bit easier on yourself. But the secret for managing it all is a solid system. Atomic Habits author James Clear said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your system." When your to-do list gets overwhelmingly long and you're unsure of how you're going to get it all done, it's important to have systems in place to guide you. And you know about the standard systems. You got to-do lists, you got paper or digital planners, a system for writing your notes. But are the systems that you're currently using serving you? Are they based on your working style, or do you find yourself constantly trying to play catch up? Is there a lot of resistance when you're using your to-do list or using your email? To determine which systems are right for you, you first had to determine your preferences. So do you prefer paper or digital organization systems, or maybe like a mixture of both? Do you communicate more efficiently through email or by phone? How do you respond to high-stress situations that require quick thinking? Organization isn't one size fits all, and it's important to determine which methods fit seamlessly into your systems and which are going to be too difficult for you to manage. We've probably heard of, like, the Home Edit that have a show on Netflix, and all their stuff is beautiful. It's clean, it's orderly, it's in rainbow order a lot of the time, and that is great for some people. But for some other people, that system might be a nightmare because of the way that it's set up. Not everything is going to work for everybody. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Often the systems that you have to continually manage are not the right systems for you. So let's put this idea into context of a physical space. For example, if you're someone who struggles to keep your home or your office tidy on a day-to-day basis, you may just need a system in place to contain the clutter instead of actually organizing it. Or maybe you're someone who doesn't see the value in having an overly organized space. If that's the case, you're not going to want to work in an environment where everything is very meticulously labeled. You would be more inclined to keep a space clean that has a system in place that just contains chaos, larger categories, easy to reach baskets and containers, etc. However, if you're on the other side of the spectrum and you prefer perfectly organized spaces, the exact opposite might be true, and just containing the clutter isn't enough. When it comes to organization and finding the system that works well for you, you want to consider your habits, your preferences, and ultimately your goals. So someone who prefers digital planning is unlikely going to succeed with a paper planner. Someone who remembers things more clearly when they're written down will probably not enjoy a digital note-taking system. The important thing to remember is that there is no wrong preference. A system that works well for you is the right system to implement, no matter what that might look like. So I kind of wanted to do something a little bit fun. So I put together a quick quiz/poll about organizing styles, because who doesn't love to take a quiz on the internet? So the first question that I have is, what method do you prefer when you are taking notes? If you're using a calendar, do you prefer digital, paper, hybrid? You know, what's your vibe whenever you are planning out your day? All right, a lot of a little bit of both, which I was expecting that. I'm the same way. I tend to prefer more digital note-taking systems, but if I have a really stressful day and I just need to write out a very simple, quick list of things I need to do, I'll do it on a Post-it note. So it's mostly digital, but I do a little bit of paper as well. All right, the next question. Do you prefer to organize your stuff in broad categories or in more detailed categories, or a little bit of both? I'm more of a clean freak with the broad categories, I would say. I need something that I can just kind of toss things into, but it better look good. It better be organized. Wow, a lot of people like a little bit of both, but a lot of people do like detailed categories. I can't do detailed categories. If something is too labeled, I'll lose it, or I won't put it back where it's supposed to go. All right, interesting. These are always so fun. I love to see what everybody thinks with this kind of stuff. Next question, last question as well. Would you consider yourself more of a clean freak or more go with the flow? Oh, we got lots of go with the flow, a little bit of clean freak. Oh, it's neck and neck at this point. Okay, neck and neck. All right. I definitely am a clean freak, so I think clean freaks won this one. Good job, clean freaks. Okay, that's awesome. Just a fun little poll to get us started and to kind of get your brain thinking on the kind of systems that you think would be helpful for you. Regardless of your preferences, there are a few organizational structures that you want to have in place. The most important of which is your to-do list. But before we talk about our list, it's helpful to do a brain dump. When it feels like my to-do list has gotten out of hand and the emails just aren't stopping, I take some time to brain dump every single to-do list item that's on my mind, and I reorganize them. This may seem like you're wasting time organizing when you should be pushing through and working, but I promise you your productivity is going to skyrocket when you take the time that you need to get everything sorted. And when I say brain dump every single to-do list item, I mean every single to-do list item, personal and professional. It's all taking up space in your brain and it needs to be recategorized. I will brain dump everything from responding to that email I've been putting off, to filling up my water bottle, from writing copy for that flyer, to setting up some time to phone a vendor about a project. When life feels a little bit too overwhelming, it can be helpful to put everything that's in your brain on paper, or if you're digital, a Word document, so that it's no longer taking up that real estate in your mind that you need to be using for something else, especially during OEP. So let's do this exercise together for a few minutes. Everybody grab a pen or paper or open a fresh Word document, whichever you prefer. We're going to take just a couple of minutes here, and we are going to write out all of our to-do list items that are cluttering our brain, both personal and professional, if that's helpful for you. So we're just going to do it right here on this webinar. Let's get the stuff off of our brain. We'll just do it for a couple minutes. And as you get started on your list, here are some questions that you can ask yourself to help with your brain dump. First question, is there a high priority task on your list that has to be completed soon? Is there something that someone has asked you to do that you need to act on? Are there any messages, emails, etc. that you need to respond to? Are there any emails that you're putting off responding to? I know that I have a few. Are there any projects that you want to start or complete but don't have the time for right now? Do you need to schedule any meetings or any appointments, a doctor's appointment? Have you not gone to the doctor in a while? Write that down. Are there any home projects that are taking up space in your brain? Maybe you've got a wonky toilet that's just not doing what it's supposed to do, and it's been that way for a minute. Are there any papers in your inbox that need to be addressed and filed? Is there anything that you need to add to your shopping list? I'm going to give you just another couple of minutes to finish up just a really quick brain dump. This is something that you can do a little bit later as well, and do a full brain dump of your stuff. But just to get this basic stuff off your brain, let's just take a couple more minutes here. All right. I myself wrote down a couple of things, and what I've realized is that some personal things on my to-do list are taking up more space in my brain than I anticipated, and it's probably making my professional life a little bit more difficult because I'm also busy on that side too. So this kind of thing is really helpful for trying to figure out where your priorities are at the moment. All right. Now that we have a brain dump, it'll just be a simple one. For outside of the webinar, I would recommend taking a good 20 to 30 minutes and just sitting there and staring at the piece of paper until you have everything down, but this is a good start. Now that we have it done, it's time to act on these items, which means we have to clarify our to-do list. So we need to find out what needs to be done and how much time and energy it's going to take to complete that task. And then we're going to organize those to-dos into categories. So to start clarifying our list, we want to first consider the SMART approach, just like we would when we're establishing our goals. We want our tasks to be specific, measurable, achievable, and time-bound. So let's use the SMART approach to be more specific with our tasks. If you have a larger task that requires several different steps, I recommend dividing that larger task into smaller individual tasks that are more achievable. For example, I would not just write an ebook. That's a big task. That's a little bit too overwhelming to start on if I don't actually just break it down into steps. I'm not just going to write an ebook. Instead, I would try to make that task more specific by listing more detailed tasks like brainstorm the ebook, create an outline for the ebook, write the first chapter of the ebook, etc. Additionally, we may want to add deadlines to our tasks to ensure that we're staying on a timeline that ensures we're reaching our goals and not getting too buried under our to-do list. So in our previous example of writing an ebook, I would say the first individual task is a 30-minute brainstorming session that I want done by Friday this week. And then maybe after that, I want to focus on creating an outline for the ebook, and I want that done by Friday of next week, and so on and so forth. Using the SMART approach to categorize and clarify our tasks makes our list far more manageable and less overwhelming to work through. And once we've clarified the tasks on our list, we can start organizing the list into two sections, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. We have our top 3 priorities for the day and your full list. Your top 3 list is going to consist of the 3 tasks that you would like to accomplish that day. That's right, just 3. Setting these tasks every day is going to help you maintain your priorities as your list fills up. You don't want to include more than your 3 tasks on your top 3 list because you want to maintain a focus for the day. And I know this is a lot to ask, especially during the busy season. You definitely have more than 3 priorities for the day. But the goal is to give your brain a win by completing those 3 tasks on that day. Don't worry, if you finish up your top 3 for the day, you can always continually add more tasks to the list. The trick is just to minimize the clutter and the overwhelm in your brain and focus on small sections of work at a time. So try doing the top 3, and then if you cross those out, you can always add more. And once our top 3 priorities have been determined, we can categorize the rest of the list by priority. So high priority, medium priority, low priority, however you want to do your own system. So here's an example of how I manage my own to-do list. As someone who prefers more specific to-do lists, I like to track deadlines, the progress that I've made on a task, and the date that I worked on the task. This helps me communicate the progress of my tasks and also helps me determine if I have too many quote-unquote priorities. For those who are interested, I created this table on Notion, which is just a free website where I organize all my schedules, my to-do lists, etc. If that's something that you're interested in learning more about, let me know in the question box, and I can put that on the list for next year. It's basically just a database to help me stay organized. Very easy to use. I also like to reflect on my tasks and schedule them based on my work preferences. So I'm a morning person, for example, and I tend to schedule the most challenging tasks for the morning and the least disruptive admin tasks for the afternoon when I'm feeling more lethargic. If you tend to work more efficiently in the afternoon, on the other hand, you may want to consider tackling your top 3 lists then. And we'll talk a little bit more about these golden hours for productivity in a second. You probably already have a system in place for tracking your to-dos. Maybe it's a Post-it note, a notebook, a task manager on your computer, or, no judgment, maybe it's just a stack of napkins from your lunch. No matter what system you use for keeping track of these to-dos, you want to make sure your list is easy to maintain and easy to access, whether that's paper or digital. So for a couple of digital options, if you use Gmail for your email, it's a great digital option for also tracking your tasks because they have Google Tasks here on the right-hand side. So if you open up your Gmail account and you go over to this checkbox to the right-hand side of the screen, you can open up Google Tasks. And this is a free application that is available through your Gmail account. Using the application, you can make a very basic task list and a top 3 list to track your to-dos. And basically the top 3 list that I use is their new starred feature, where you can select what your priorities are, and they will put them in a special starred list. So here are the top 3. But then you have your full list, and you can break that down even further if you want. You could do a personal list and a professional list. You can create a specific list for one project that you're working for. There are a lot of different options for how you can manage your tasks through Google Tasks. And if you click through into the task, you can also add additional details. So one tip that I like to use, especially for tasks that seem maybe a little bit too overwhelming, is I like to put the URL code or the URL or maybe a phone number within the details so that it reduces the amount of friction between me and getting that task done. Because all I have to do is then click on that phone number on my phone, and then I can go straight to it. You can also add a date and a time for when you want this completed, and then you can have it repeat. So it's a recurring task, which is something that we will talk about here in just a second as well. So highly recommend if you have Gmail accounts and you prefer digital systems. Google Tasks is simple, it's intuitive, and it's really, really user-friendly. So I highly recommend it. And the nicest thing about this, I think, that I think most people love about having a digital system is that when you complete a task and you mark it as completed, it disappears. And that for me is big for managing kind of the clutter in my brain, is making sure that all the stuff that's already done is out of sight and out of mind. Microsoft Outlook also offers a very similar feature where you can use tasks. So at the bottom left-hand corner here, you have your email, and then you have your calendar, and then these 3 dots on the bottom, if you click that and go to tasks, it'll show up here. So with this system, you can type in the box what your task is, give it a date, give it a reminder, you can give it a due date, and you can categorize it, and then you can use these little flags or notifications to give yourself a heads up. They also have additional details that you can add, like priorities, whether the task is active or completed, things like that. So this is a really nice system. And then if you have your email, I don't want to show my email too much here, but if you have this right-hand panel over here, then it will show up at the bottom, so your tasks will be front of mind at all times. And you can just do that by going to View, Toolbar, To-Do bar, sorry, and then Tasks right here. And all of your tasks will show up here, and you can manage it from here. I started using that when I first started at Cornerstone, and I really loved it. And then my job got a little bit more complicated, and it was just easier for me to use my own little system that I put together in Notion. But those are two very good digital options. They also have a bunch of different apps that you can use online called Todoist. There's oh gosh, what is it called? Things 3 is a really popular one, especially for iPhone and for Mac users, because you can download the app onto your computer, and it's really, really great for managing your to-dos and being a little bit more specific with your tasks. So if you're a digital note taker, those are some great systems for you. However, if you use a paper system instead, find a notebook that you can keep next to you at your desk and take with you when you need to. You want to reserve this notebook for just task management, not for your meeting notes. You do want to have two separate things. As far as using a paper to-do list system, I would use a page per day to list your tasks and your top 3. And that's just to minimize the amount of visual clutter that's in front of you. If you want to keep it simple, you can just write your top 3 list at the top of the page, so it's front of mind, and then all of your other tasks down below, or you can keep a master list of your additional tasks on a different page. Then the next day or the next week, whenever you want to change up the to-do list, you can transfer any of the unfinished to-dos to the next page and create your new top 3 for the day. Very, very simple. And there are plenty of different kinds of notepads online that I really like that are specifically designed for maintaining a to-do list. And here are just a couple that I found with a quick search on Amazon. I especially like that these notebooks require you to establish your focus or your priorities for the day. So very much like what we talked about with the top 3. I also like that you can kind of add more details about schedules. You can make a habit tracker if you want to, if you're somebody that's really into fitness, or there are things in your personal life that you have goals for. Some paper planners also offer things like that. You can leave notes for yourself, things like that. I would recommend a notebook that you can kind of get a little bit more detailed with, just like this. Obviously, a $2 notebook from Walgreens is going to be just as helpful as any of these more expensive paper planners. So whatever works for you is exactly the system that you need to use. But some people do like a pretty little notebook. One paper planner that I've used in the past that I really loved is it's called the Passion Planner, which helps me maintain my goals for both personal and professional use. Let me actually bring that up because it's a really great planner. It also helps you maintain a schedule by hour. So I highly recommend. If you have an Amazon account, Clever Fox also has a lot of really great paper planners that you can use, but it's just passionplanner.com. This is a great planner system that I highly recommend, especially for people who like to balance all of their personal and professional things within the same system. I do have a question that I'd like to answer now. Do you have a favorite electronic notebook that takes notes easily? That's a great question. I have a couple of different things that I've used in the past. I personally use Notion right now. Notion has a bit of a setup, but I've been thinking about making a template that brokers can just download and use. If that's something that you guys are interested in, just let me know. But I do use that for my typical day-to-day. So this is what my Notion looks like, actually. This is my day-to-day use. that I have all my schedules, my to-do list items are up here. And then at the bottom, I have my meetings. So if I have a meeting, then I will just create a new page. And let me see here. Where'd it go? Yeah, so I would just create a new page, and it does provide like a note-taking system digitally. I've also used OneNote in the past, which is a Microsoft application that I really liked as well, and it's gotten more intuitive as time has gone by, for creating checklists, making sure that you can categorize each of your chapters in your notebook. So OneNote is a great option. And if you're a Google user, a Gmail user, I honestly recommend Google, what is it called? It's the Word document one. And the thing that I like about the Word document piece of the Google Drive is that if you add headings to your page, then they can be seen on the outline. So you could head the day with like the title of the meeting, and then you can easily navigate on the left-hand side to that specific meeting if you're looking for something. So there's a couple of different electronic notebooks that I recommend. Another one would be Evernote. That's another free one that a lot of people like. I personally was not a huge fan of it. I preferred OneNote or Notion, but a lot of people do really, really like Evernote and swear by it. So that's another good option. All right. So once you have all of your paper to-do lists or digital to-do lists picked out, you want to be able to start putting everything on autopilot. So when you're in the throes of the busy season, the last thing you want to worry about is a notification that pops up in your email to, let's say, re-register your website domain, or perhaps tackle those dreaded CE courses. I just recently got my first email about my CE courses, and I need to complete those. So to avoid any hiccups while you're in the zone, you're in OEP, you're focused, you've got your stuff going on with your clients, to avoid any kind of hiccups during that time, you want to consider creating a schedule of reoccurring tasks, either on your calendar or within your to-do list. So for example, as a health insurance broker, you know how much of a pain those 24 hours of CE can be, and the time to complete them seems to surprise you every single time. You always get those emails and you're like, oh God, it's already time for me to do these 24 hours again. And it can be a little bit more difficult to complete them, especially if you got your license in the fall. So you want to add some time to your list ahead of time to work on your CE courses, a couple hours at a time. So I would recommend creating recurring tasks to make it easier to manage a busy to-do list later. So if I have a large project coming up, for example, I can review my recurring tasks and determine which can be done before or after the project is complete if the task falls during that time period. So on the right-hand side here, you have a picture of the Google Tasks that I showed you before, and you are able to create recurring tasks within Google Tasks. And I put a couple of different examples, like paying renter's insurance. Okay, that's going to be every single year at the same exact time. So put that as a recurring task, as once per year, give me a notification that I need to pay my renter's insurance. And then you can set it up for maybe a month ahead of time so that you have a month to make sure that you get it together. Or paying your Microsoft Office subscription, you know, scheduling some nail trimming for a cat, or any kind of like bath for a dog, you know. Stuff always pops up randomly. You see your scruffy little dog and you think, oh God, it's that time again. These things just, you don't think about them. They're in the background. So you want to put them on autopilot so that you don't have to add them to your brain. You don't have to think about them all the time, but you do get reminders so that you're not late with them. So now that we have our systems in place, we know that we like paper or digital or mixture. We know how we like to categorize our to-do list. We have a nice brain dump that we can work off of. We've established our top 3. Now it's time to talk about some time management tools that you can use on a day-to-day basis. It's It's important to have a productivity system in place, but it's even more beneficial to determine what times of the day you are most productive. I spoke about this briefly before, so let's chat about it in a little bit more detail now. There are a number of quote-unquote experts online that passionately sing the praises of a 5 a.m. morning routine, complete with meditation, a healthy breakfast, a 1-hour workout, journaling, etc. And that is awesome for some people, and it really, really works. But there are others, like me, that routine is a recipe for destroying your productivity, because that is not the time that you are the most productive. So to manage your time most efficiently, you want to try to determine your golden hours, or the time of the day that you are most productive and energetic. This might be first thing in the morning, like those 5 a.m. folks, or it could be 10 p.m. at night. It's important not to try to shrink to fit into a box that you do not fit in with your productivity. If you try to wake up early every day for a month and you're still miserable at the end of the month, it's likely that waking up early just isn't for you. So how do you determine what is right for you, and how do you work within the time constraints of the typical 9 to 5 working day? Because obviously, if you are most productive at 10 p.m., that's probably not going to fly with a business. A great way to determine your golden hours is to consider your chronotype. Now, stay with me. This is a fun activity to do, and it's fun to think about. According to the Sleep Foundation, chronotype is the natural inclination of your body to sleep at a certain time, or what most people understand as being an early bird or a night owl. Dr. Michael Bruce, the author of The Power of When, talks about learning to work with your body and not against it. So if you are somebody who thinks, I should really start waking up at 5 a.m. every morning, and you haven't been able to make that work in the last year, 5 a.m. is probably not your time to wake up. So let's talk about the different chronotypes, and you can find out what your chronotype is at thepowerofnowquiz.com. I actually took this not thinking that it would be very helpful, because it sounds a little bit woo-woo, but for me, it actually was quite helpful in determining my optimal performance times for getting my most challenging projects done. I do a lot of writing, and I do a lot of work that would require a lot of brain power, so figuring out the times that it is best for me to do that and working with those times rather than against them has been a game changer. So let's go through the 4 chronotypes. The first is the lion. The lion chronotype stands in for the early bird. These individuals wake up early and are most productive in the morning, but they might have more trouble following a social schedule in the evening. So they tend to wake up around 5 a.m. and they're most productive between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. According to Dr. Bruce, the bear makes up about 55% of the population. So I would say most of you are bears. And I'm actually interested to see what you guys think that you are before taking the quiz. So let me know in the comments what you think that you are. People with the bear chronotype tend to follow the sun. They do well with traditional office hours, but they have no problem maintaining a social life in the evening. Bears tend to wake up around 7 a.m. and are most productive between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. The wolf chronotype is equivalent to the classic night owl and is believed to make up approximately 15% of the population. Wolves tend to wake up around 9 a.m. and are most productive between 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. And finally, we have the dolphin chronotype, which is based on the ability of real dolphins to stay alert even while sleeping. Human dolphins are more accurately described as insomniacs. They tend to wake up around 6 a.m. and are most productive between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Determining your chronotype is going to help you schedule and manage your tasks more efficiently. For example, if you're a wolf, your productivity sweet spot starts at about noon. So you're going to want to schedule your most demanding tasks for around that time, and maybe do most of your admin work in the beginning of the day. On the screen is the infographic with the optimal sleep and wake times for your chronotypes to help you structure your days. Personally, I'm a lion, so I like to schedule my most demanding tasks for between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. when I'm the most focused, which means making phone calls, because phone calls are difficult for me for whatever reason, doing project management work, writing, most of the things that require a lot of brain power. And then for the rest of the day, mostly after lunch, I tend to schedule more light tasks like any kind of design work or admin work, because I know my energy levels are going to be far lower. But like I said, if you want to find out your chronotype, it's kind of a fun little quiz to take, and it actually is quite helpful. You can go to thepowerofnowquiz.com and figure it out. I was actually quite surprised to figure out that I'm a lion. I really thought I was a bear because I do not wake up easily in the morning. Now that we've determined our most productive hours based on our work style, we can use a number of techniques to actually get the work done. The simplest techniques are often the most effective. The Pomodoro Technique was developed by Francesco Cirillo in the late 1980s as a way to manage time more effectively. The idea is to set a timer for 25 minutes, or any amount of time that works best for you, to do focused, uninterrupted work. And once that time is over, you can take a 5-minute break. You then continually repeat the cycle 4 times and then take a longer break. And I find that this is really helpful for people who have difficulty with attention or maintaining focus on any specific task. I think that this is really, really helpful to do the Pomodoro Technique. I'm somebody who also struggles with focus a little bit, so Pomodoro Technique is a lifesaver. I tend to set my Pomodoro timer for 50 minutes with a 5-minute break in between so that I can get more coffee, use the restroom, check my phone. But during those 50 minutes, my focus is entirely on my work. And this technique helps manage distractions and decreases mental fatigue. I find my days that are a lot more focused and more efficient when I use this technique. So if you tend to get distracted by smaller tasks like your email, or if you are overly optimistic about how much you can reasonably get done in a day, you find yourself working past the point of optimal productivity, I would definitely consider trying out this technique. It puts in breaks for your brain. So let's use a practical example. Let's say you're working on a benefit election form and a presentation for a client as part of your top 3 list for the day. And you just need to take the time to get it done. It just has to get done. Set a timer. You can use a clock function on your phone. You can use an app. You can use whatever you need to do. Set a timer to focus on that project and only that project for the set amount of time that you think that you have in you. So for me, that's 50 minutes. Maybe for you, you only have 15 minutes of focus. Maybe it's just one of those days because we all have those days. So work for those 15 minutes, those 30 minutes, and then once your break comes up, you can check your emails. You can get a new cup of coffee. You can stretch. But for that specific amount of time that you set, you are glued to the project of this benefit election form and only this project. You close your email, you close everything else that you're doing, and you only focus on this one thing. So I use an app called Focus Keeper on the iPhone to track my Pomodoro set, but there are plenty of options out there. The Focus Keeper app, if you do have an iPhone, allows me to set the length of time for each round and how many rounds I would like to do. I don't typically worry about how many rounds I want to do. I just keep pressing play every single time I need the timer. But it is helpful for some people who are like, I want to get through, at least 5 rounds of work today. It is helpful to track that. It's also helpful to track your stats to see how much productivity has improved throughout the week with this technique. So you can legitimately see with the charts that they have provided if this technique is even helpful for you. Because if it's not even helpful, why do it? So they provide those stats for you so that you can figure that out. For Android, I've also heard a lot of great things about Pomodoro. I've heard that it's quite similar to Focus Keeper. So I would recommend that you check that out if you don't have an iPhone or an iPad. I do not have an Android, so I cannot confirm that, but that is what I've heard from other people. The next popular technique for managing your time is called calendar blocking. Fair warning, some argue that the calendar blocking system feels overwhelming, and I think I agree with this, but this is really helpful for other people. But if that's the case for you, maybe it's time to think of a different way to schedule your time. So if this is too overwhelming, don't even worry about it. I know for me, the calendar blocking system can be a little bit scary, a little bit like you look at your calendar and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. But I also know a lot of people who swear by this method, both inside of Cornerstone and out. Calendar blocking can be used to schedule in time for each task that you have on your to-do list. You literally just add an event to your calendar to mark the time that you will complete a task. So you basically use a task as a meeting. This helps you set realistic expectations for your list. It keeps you away from distractions and informs colleagues when you're unavailable for meetings or phone calls if they can see your calendar, which is really, really helpful. If you use this technique, then it's important to keep the rule that once you place an event on your calendar to complete a task, you cannot move it. That's the thing with calendar blocking, is that once it's in there, it's in there. That's the way it is. One way to use calendar blocking is to manage your emails and other administrative tasks. Emails can be the death of your productivity because you're never going to be done responding to them, especially during OEP and AEP. The famous inbox zero, I don't know if you've heard that, but it's basically having no emails in your inbox at all times. That's a really nice thought, but new emails are always going to come in. So putting 30 minutes on the calendar 2 times a day and blocking out that time will help you focus on the most important tasks while ensuring that you will respond to those important emails at some point during the day that are coming in consistently, but you're not checking it all day, every day. If you receive an email outside of those 30-minute increments that you've put on your calendar, they will have to wait. But throughout the 30 minutes that you have, you can respond to emails and task them, or maybe you make it an hour or 2 hours, whatever, however much time you need for your emails. But the goal is emails are always going to come in. You're going to have to respond to them at some point, but let's put some time on the calendar to do that so that the rest of the time I can get stuff done. If you have calls to make, it's the same way. You can put some time on the calendar. If you have to put together like a proposal, you can put time on the calendar for that. Any kind of like pesky administrative task, you can put like a little 15-minute increment on the calendar and make it like a recurring task like we were talking about. I always like to make sure that I'm breaking for lunch if I have the time. So I'm also sure to put that on my calendar as well, just to make sure that no meetings kind of run into my lunchtime, because my colleagues can see my calendar. So here I've put together a light example of what calendar blocking might look like for my week specifically. I would have admin, designs to create, copy to write, webinars to put together, emails to send out, projects to manage, so on and so forth. It can be pretty overwhelming to just see a giant list that I need to accomplish. So this calendar blocking system is going to help me make time for the important tasks, so that the calls, the emails, and meetings can wait until after I'm done with the task, because I already have those tasks scheduled throughout the day. So this is kind of what it would look like. You can see why some people might find it overwhelming. Like personally, I find it a little bit overwhelming to see all of the different chunks of time. But at the same time, it's also really helpful to know, oh God, I have to work on the presentation on Monday. Oh, well, I have time scheduled for that specifically from 2 to 3. And because it's on my calendar, nobody can put a meeting on there. So it's really, really helpful for a lot of people because of that reason. The next tip, if you want to remain productive in the midst of the chaos, it's important to take some time to reset. Now, I know all of you guys are salespeople. You guys are always hitting the ground running. You are, trying to get into the grind and do the most that you can. So you're probably not going to like this tip. However, I promise it's important. It's likely that you found yourself buried beneath overwhelm before, probably more than once, definitely more than once during OEP. We all know the feeling. Your phone is ringing off the hook, your desk is a mess, you're afraid of forgetting what you need to do for one client while you're talking to another. This is going to seem very counterintuitive at the moment, but this is exactly the right time for you to do a 20-minute tidy of both your mind and your space. A 20-minute tidy is not only going to help you reset your mind and your space to continue on with your day, it's also going to give you a small win that will encourage your brain to keep moving in a positive direction. And that's the key. You got to keep the brain happy. If you didn't take the time to do your 20-minute tidy, your work could get far too ahead of you, and it would be difficult to get yourself back to zero. So here's how that works. First step, stop what you're doing. If you can, and this is not possible for everybody, but if you can, let the phone ring and take some time to get situated. Take 3 deep breaths, put on some music, or do some light stretching. Just get your brain, your mind, everything back to zero for a second. Second, do that brain dump that we talked about. Take some time to do a brain dump of every single thing that's on your mind onto a piece of paper, just like we did at the beginning of the webinar. everything from tasks that you have to do at work to remembering to pick up salsa on your way home. Next is categorize. It's time to put your task in the proper place. Add your work task to your daily or weekly to-do list, and an alarm on your phone that reminds you to go to the grocery when you leave work. Add post-it notes with notes to documents that you've processed. Get yourself organized and get yourself situated. And last but not least, take care of your space. Take a couple minutes to get your space back to where you typically like it. Put documents in a paper inbox to file later. Clean out your coffee mug, get rid of the cans of ginger ale, refill your water bottle. It's important to reset yourself to 0. This also gives your brain time to jump out of fight or flight, which makes it easier for you to make decisions and helps you keep up with your work. You're going to be a more effective salesperson or administrator when you have a tidy space, when you have a tidy mind, when you have the space to help your client. Both you deserve that and so does your client. So taking this time to get yourself organized is really important. And trust me, taking the time to tidy your space and your brain is in fact productive work. It just may not seem like it in the moment. Last but not least, set boundaries for your work. If you manage your own business, the lines between your personal and your professional life are very easily blurred. If that's the case, it's important to set some time and attention constraints on your work. Outside of work, we have families, friends, health priorities, etc. And let's face it, you simply cannot pour from an empty cup. During the busy season, it's important to remember where to draw the lines. Maybe your workday ends a little bit later than usual, but make sure it ends. Remember, when you overextend yourself past the point of productivity, you are doing yourself and your clients a disservice. Learning when to shut down the computer for the day so that you can go for a run, have dinner with your family, see that new movie you've wanted to see, etc. That's all important as well. Your clients and your business are massively important, but I promise you won't manage it well without some breaks for life to happen. So make sure you're taking some time to shut it all off and quit for the day. And I say that because I know some of y'all, like I said, you love the grind. If you want to be at your most productive, make sure you know when to stop. Putting some systems in place to best organize your life is a very challenging and overwhelming task, but it's going to help you streamline your work and it will help you prevent overwhelm in the future. The best part about implementing a new productivity technique is the ability to tailor it specifically for your needs. Don't feel restricted by the rules that are set in place. You want to customize them so that you can do focused work that brings you closer to your goals. And with that, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to ask any questions that you might have. So I'll leave the chat open for just a second. And I'd also like to know, in the most recent Monday Minute survey that I sent out, I asked what kind of information you would like to see in the Monday Minute, and a lot of people responded productivity and time management techniques, as well as like small business help, things like that. So as far as like productivity and time management techniques, what else would you like to learn about? Go ahead and write that in the comments or in the chat in the question box, because that's going to help me figure out what kind of information you guys are looking for, what kind of stuff you're struggling with, things like that. So go ahead and leave any kind of suggestions that you might have in the question box or the chat so that I can get that stuff added to the list. I have a colleague who says that on their to-do list is taking a break from work and annoying Jess in her office. And that's true for this colleague. I think he does have it as a recurring task on his to-do list. Oh, we got a couple lions in the chat as well. I'm not surprised by that. I'm not surprised that a lot of you guys are lions. Like I said, the grind never stops. All right, looks like we don't have any other questions for today. If you're interested in more webinars like this, I want to hear about it, so let me know what you struggle with when it comes to productivity. You can email me at jlarkin@crnstone.com and let me know. Thank you all for joining today, and everyone have a great day and a fantastic holiday weekend. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.